UX designer, experience designer, who is designing the next television program guide, where you're sitting you're sitting down, watching TV, and the TV projects like Kinect to you and puts the program guide right in front of you, and you touch it in space. You go backwards in time and you go forwards in time to store the shows that you want to see on your DVR, and backwards in time to do VOD, and it's all sitting right here. That capability is here right now, so post the screen. Today I'm going to be talking about something much more droll and uninteresting, but really what's driving our business today, and how we, as a company, as a television-based company, survived the last 3 years. Does anybody remember 1973 recession? Anybody old enough to do that? Yeah. Remember the term conspicuous frugality? It's what came out of the world of when the VW Rabbit was formed, was built. That everybody was buying a Rabbit at the time, and everybody mentioned it as conspicuous frugality. I think we're sort of moving through the next stage of that, and 30, 40 years later, we're into a new frugality that's driving consumer behavior right now. And we see it at HGTV. It's pretty interesting. So we've had to change the way. What I'm going to talk about today is sort of how we look at the world today. Our business is on nightly ratings, HGTV. HGTV is about nightly ratings. So every night, we sample 7,500 households, Nielsen does, and finds out who's been watching what shows at night. This is a successful business for us because it turns out that in the 107 million cable households, cable, satellite, and telco households, we're in all of them. We're basically capable of being seen in all 106 million homes. But at any given time, only 1% is watching HGTV at any given time. But that's a big enough business, 1%, a million people at any given time, to drive what was last year our most successful year. We did $1.6 billion in revenue and over $600 million or $700 million in actual cash flow. So it's a big business, and it's a big business that's getting bigger. Television is not going away. In fact, television, there's more television being watched today than there was last year, and the year before, and the year before. So I'm a digiter. I love the digital space. I live in the digital space. I'm not quite as hip as Brad is, but I do, in fact, live in that space. But it turns out that the world necessarily is watching television as well. So today's talk is a little bit about the reality of living through this recession, what consumers have been going through, and how it affects TV. So we used to base all of our concepts on programming, on ideas, inspiration, and information. That was sort of the troika of what we did to form HGTV back in 94, 95. We've added throughout this next phase, through this phase, reality. Reality TV is actually pretty interesting. Wish fulfillment, which is a whole different world than what we've been in before, and voyeurism. These are aspects of the human psyche that people will watch TV for, watch our kind of TV for. People really like looking into other people's homes, really like identifying that their wishes may be, in fact, capable of being fulfilled. And they like seeing each other's, sort of, when somebody gets a makeover done, they like to see it. So the number one thing that we're wishing, we've got 2 tapes that we put out, still tapes, for our what's called the upfront sales marketing, which is basically how we're going to sell to advertisers. And we have a wish fulfillment tape and we have an eye candy tape. We are an entertainment company. So to a certain degree, what I'm going to talk about today is sort of how we tell the story of how do we get all of this into a story on video. And it's kind of an interesting life. So we go into people's homes and we shoot. And we shoot. We shoot in 140 countries. We shoot in the number 1 show on HGTV. The number 2 show is House Hunters International. Here we're in the middle of a recession, and the number 2 show is an international House Hunter show. House Hunters has been on HGTV for 8 years. It's still the number 1 show. Real estate show. As I'll show you, we have 94, 96 shows on every week that are real estate oriented. People have not abandoned the idea of liking real estate shows. The economy has knocked them up and down, but they're still deeply, they have home lust. And that home lust sort of comes out in all the shows. So, but Scripps Networks is a bunch of other networks. We're the Food Network, we're Travel Channel, were the do-it-yourself network, which has a rise right now, the Great American Country Network, Cooking, and HGTV. And what's interesting about this is those networks have done well over this rocky last 3 years. In fact, we bought the Travel Channel in the middle of the recession, knowing that travel would be coming on a rise here in post-recession. But the reality is, the real estate market sucks. Existing home sales, flat, rocky. We know that residential improvements in the space have 8 months of building up, now 7 months of down. Still, we're not out of this. This is what we build our business around, is remodeling, makeovers, basically improving homes. So we know that this is a critical thing to the people who are watching our shows. But at the same time, they're not watching our shows. We have the highest ratings we've ever had. Really interesting. We know that personal disposable income is up. And that, in fact, if people are planning projects, which they are, they're not spending quite as much, but they're still doing projects. The Scripps Network's viewers are, in fact, affluent relative to all other cable networks. The #1 show on cable is SpongeBob. The #2 show is wrestling. So we do know that our viewers who watch our networks, in fact, are pretty good arbiters of what the affluent American is about. And they think that we're not on the right track. The economy will take 1 to 3 years to get back. And that's reality. That's the reality that they're living in. So we can't sort of assume that they're going to do all this. We set the pace of sort of dreamscape and what you would wish fulfillment again. We do know that they're already making steps, that they're starting to take they're purchasing generic brands, they're brown bagging lunch. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't stop buying coffee for my morning, but they are. How many have got rid of their landlines here? Their phone lines. It's the smartest thing you can do. There's no reason for a landline anymore. As Brad said, mobile's mobile. Mobile goes with you. Why do you pay $20 to $70 a month for landline? Well, people have found that out. So they're economizing. The American public's doing a good job of economizing. They're also not going to give up their cable, and they're not going to give up their cell phones. This is big time. These are the two most important drugs they have. Right? So cable, it turns out to be very, very important. On average, people watch 4.5 hours to 5 hours of television every night, every day. Okay? But they are pulling back on vacations. They are pulling back on other things. They're not necessarily pulling back on cable and their cell phones. They're rising. Even the affluent market right now that watches our networks is actually deeply engaged in finding discounted shopping sources. So this idea of going to new discount to Costco, to Walmart, to the big box retailers to buy more with less is actually a movement. And it leads to this other thing, which is the whole couponing of America. And if you think about mobile phones, think about the ability to drop coupons on the mobile phones. It's coming like a wave. So virtually, the problem will be to limit that. We're working on a project right now with Nielsen Media Sync, which allows us, your iPhone actually has a microphone in it, and your iPad has a microphone in it. So when the TV is on, it can hear what's on TV, and it can recognize the shows on TV. So I can put on a TV show that's running, say it's House Hunters, I can put a map of the house on the cell phone at the same time that you're watching it on HGTV. Or, even better, I'm watching the Food Network. And the Food Network is a show from Giada De Laurentiis on Everyday Italian. The recipe can show up on the iPad while you're watching the show, in sync, in real time. So we're working on all those kinds of things. It's pretty interesting. Well, coupons is one of them. Coupons is a huge deal. And coupons are going to go crazy, especially, what is Groupon? Groupon has now refused $8 billion from Google because they think they can IPO at $25 billion. And the Groupon model is coming to the home field. You're going to start to see people buy home merchandise, which used to be considered purchased durable goods, now being able to do it as a